Okay, it is 6 o'clock, and I will call this meeting to order. And our first agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I seek a motion to adopt the agenda unless there are changes to be requested.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. We can take first and seconds too in the, so we have, just so you all know, we have Brad and Sarah and April joining us through the phone. And I don't know if it'll be easier for you, Ms. Wintering, to have just have people in the, as long as you know who makes it. Okay. All right. Okay, so we had a second. We'll just go with Ms. Hembry for that second. So all in favor to adopt the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, items 1.4 to 1.7 are approval of minutes from special meetings and organizational meetings and regular meetings. So unless anyone would like to pull a set of meeting notes, I would seek a motion to approve items 1.4 to 1.7.
So moved, Owsley.
Second, Borgman.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries 7-0. This takes us to 2.1, the superintendent's report. Dr. Hubbard.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to start with the School Nurse of the Year. Mary Alice Kelly, school nurse at Shawnee Mission North, was named Kansas School Nurse of the Year. She was nominated by Nick England, a speech-language pathologist at Shawnee Mission North. He described how she is calm, peaceful, delightful, knowledgeable, humorous, and helps students find ways to overcome obstacles. England says she is a sought-after resource for students and staff. Kelly was honored at the 2022 Kansas Summer School Nurse Conference in July. Congratulations to Mary Alice and to Shawnee Mission North. Online verification. It's time for families to complete online verification for the start of the school year. We look forward to welcoming students back in just a few days, and these are some important back-to-school steps for our families as they get ready. We'll send a link in the recap for completing electronic forms, including permission forms, health history review, and a medication permission form. There is also an athletic packet for secondary students. Free and reduced lunch. Families are also encouraged to complete an application for free or reduced price meals as part of online verification. Over the last few years, federal school meal waivers made meals free for all students. Congress has not extended this for the current school year. Filling out the application can benefit families in multiple ways. For qualifying families, it can mean increased state and federal funds for staff and resources at your child's school, certain types of reduced fees, and free or reduced priced meals. We will also include a link in the recap for families to fill out the application. Jumpstart. We've had so many great learning opportunities going on this summer, and I want to highlight several of them for everyone. Jumpstart to Learning just concluded for incoming kindergarten students. Jumpstart gives students the chance to strengthen literacy, numeracy, and the skills of just being a student. It also helps our kindergartners to be ready on day one and throughout the entire school year. Camp Invention also brought a great group of students together this July. For kindergarten through fifth graders, Camp Invention was a hands-on science, technology, engineering, and math camp. Students spent a week engaged in solving problems, having fun, and getting ready to learn this year. There's also been so much going on in summer enrichment. Students have been exploring arts, sports, technology, music, and even satellite classes here at the Center's Broadmoor Bistro, Restaurant, and Urban Farm. We want to thank all of the educators who provided outstanding, personalized learning experiences to help our students learn and grow this summer. Anyone in the community interested in learning more about job opportunities in Shawnee Mission can do that at an upcoming job fair. A classified job fair will be held from 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, July 27th, 2022 at the Center for Academic Achievement. This fair will focus on paraprofessional, food service assistant, custodian, operations and maintenance team, aide positions, information and communication technology staff, and bus drivers. Again, there will be a link in the recap for anyone interested in applying or attending the fair. And lastly, I want to talk about our theme for the year, which is One Shawnee Mission. We're getting so close to the start of the school year. We held our annual leadership retreat, which helped administrators plan and prepare for the start of the year. Soon, we will welcome our educators to the new Team Member Academy and pre-service. It is getting excited. All of us, whether we're educators, students, family members, or community members, will be striving towards one common goal. We want every student to achieve their full potential, and we know that we can do that as one Shawnee Mission. I hope we all keep that in mind in the weeks and months ahead, and I wish everyone an amazing school year. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hubbard. All right, 2.2 board reports. So we have been in the summer months, but I'm just going to go around the horn for everyone in their assignments, and it might just be a quick update. But Ms. Humbry, anything on the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation or SMAC PTA?
Shawnee Mission Education Foundation, I wanted to share that the fall breakfast is scheduled for September 22nd at 7:30 p.m. back at the Overland Park Convention Center like the old days. Registrations are now open, so I hope people will sign up and be there. It's such a great chance to really get a feel for what the foundation does.
All right, great. September 22nd, is that correct?
September 22nd, 7:30 a.m.
Great, okay. All right. Mr. Stratton, is there anything you'd like to share with us around KASB Board of Directors or Finance and Facilities?
KASB Board of Directors meets next August 26th and 27th in Topeka, and we'll also be meeting with the Legislative Committee at that time. And then the annual convention is in Wichita, November 11th through 13th, and I believe 5 of our board members have already registered, so that's great. That's it.
Super, thank you. Okay. Ms. Owsley, do you?
I'm just dittoing Brad.
Okay, so the Legislative Committee meetings August 22nd and, yeah,
There's not really anything to report right now.
right, okay. Ms. Borgman, has the nominating committee set a date, or is that later?
That is later.
Okay.
Nothing new to report.
Okay, all right. And then Ms. Goodburn, anything on Policy Review Committee?
We were slated to meet next Monday, I believe, at 3:30, but I'm going to have to cancel that or reschedule it because I'm going to be unavailable. So that's just a heads up to Ms. Owsley and Ms. Borgman that look to your email in the coming days for a new date on that, and I'll give a couple so we can make sure everyone can attend.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, Ms. Boyd-Nerona, any update on real-world learning?
Nothing as of now, but there are upcoming events that are scheduled annually.
Okay, great. Okay, so meetings coming, I think was the theme there. All right, great, thank you very much. All right, that takes us to 2.3, and I believe the rest of the communication items are mostly budget-related. Is that correct, Dr. Hubbard?
That is
So let's-
correct. So if you have, we can do them one at a time, but I know that Russ has some information to share, I believe, on 2.06. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's just take each one. Does anybody have any questions on petty cash summary, 2.3? Okay, and if any of you on the phone, as we go through, why don't you go ahead and jump in the next two. The 2.4 student activity summary. Any questions there?
Russ, can you give me like a 3-second difference between petty cash and student activity summary? I feel like there's all these like tiny funds that are at each individual building.
Yeah, the petty cash, as you can see, gets very little activity anymore since we use purchasing cards, but that just gets cash to the building, and the high schools use it as their cash box money for the gate receipts. Student activities money is the building's fund for the students, so it's mainly your gate receipts, your club monies, any fundraising and concessions they do at the building. It stays there, and they use it for athletics, performing arts, clubs.
Thank you.
Great question. Okay. Anything else there? All right, 2.5, Board Financial Report. Do you want to?
I want to give you a summary of how we ended the fiscal year 22, Terry, if you want to pull that one up. This is the monthly report for June, which is we successfully closed out our fiscal year June 30th. So what you're seeing here on the screen is how we fiscal year 22 came out. We ended up with a surplus of almost 2.5 million, which put us right at 11.5%, which is within our 10 to 15% on our board policy DBB, where we try to maintain 10 to 15% minimum balance. So that worked out well. As we reported all year long, that our weighted FTE was down. So that is the main reason why we were short on our revenue, about 4.2 million of what we budgeted. Fortunately or unfortunately, both cases, we saved in vacancies to offset that revenue, nearly almost 7.2 million. So we had a lot of vacancy savings. Transportation, we budgeted extra routes for mitigation, and those didn't materialize, so we had a lot of fallout in those areas. So all in all, fiscal year 22 came out pretty well. Again, $2.5 million surplus with 11.5% ending balance. And I was going to mention ESSER 2. We still have another year to spend that. We have about $600,000 left to spend on ESSER 2. Again, we get to go to September 23 on that. We'll prioritize using that spending as we transition to ESSER 3. Also got a little bit of good news that from last week that ESSER 3 was moved on to the task force. So hopefully get approved by the task force, and it'll move to the state board. So that's that report. And then I guess back to you, 2.0.
Oh, yeah. Are there any questions about that? Brad, Sarah, April? Any questions on?
No questions.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And well done. That's, I think, about 2.4 million in relation to the total budget, and the level of precision is pretty spot on.
Yeah, Allison does a very good job projecting.
It's amazing. All right, 2.6, July 1st, unencumbered cash balances for selected funds. Dr. Hubbard, or Mr. Knapp?
Yeah, Mr. Knapp's going to take this one.
Yes, so this is a report that we usually report at this time to the board that ends June 30th. We do this on a monthly basis. It was required by KSDE, by all school districts, to submit this report each month. That got changed, so beginning July 1st, we are now just back to an annual reporting. I think historically it came about because they wanted to see what our actual cash flows were between that July and December month, when all the CFOs get up there and say that's when it gets very lean. So maybe they got all the data they need, but we'll be back to once a year. So this report's balances at June 30th. The operating balance that we maintain is in the special education fund. So you see that 22, close to 23 million. That's the one I just talked about. That's where we keep our operating fund balance. So special education and the contingency reserve fund, those are the two we add together to go up against our board policy DBB and maintain that 10 to 15%. I will highlight the general fund. It does say a negative $7.3 million. Don't be alarmed. That is the general state aid receivable. That's the one that they hold on and they send to us that first week of July, but then they tell us to book it as a receivable. So on our books, our trial balance is showed a fund balance of 0, which is fine on the general fund. That is your target, is to end with the 0 balance. So that's just the general state aid receivable. And then the supplemental general fund is also part of the operating funds, and it says $8 million there. Again, you don't have access to that because that stays in that fund, and that just rolls forward to the next fiscal year, and that counts as a revenue source for that year. And in turn, what happens is that mill levy goes down a little bit for that future year. So any fund balance in the supplemental general just rolls that next year and helps the mill levy go down. All the rest are just restricted for that specific purpose. And the balance is generally, if it's a larger balance, is because we collect taxes in May, and the spending usually doesn't happen until a little bit later in the fiscal year. So again, this is just a point in time at June 30th of what our balances look like, and they fluctuate all year long.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions there? Any questions from our remote call-in folks?
None for
No
me.
questions.
Okay, so I appreciate that clarification. So while it's unencumbered funds, they all have intended uses essentially, or
That's correct.
for the coming school year. Okay, I got logged out here, so just a minute, there we go, I'm back in. Okay, all right, so that brings us to discussion items. Thank you very much, Mr. Knapp.
You're welcome.
Discussion item 3.1, Year 4 Kansas Education Systems Accreditation, or known as KESA process. It's a significant part of the accreditation process for every school district in Kansas. And a summary of the outside visiting team's report. So Dr. Hubbard?
So yeah, I would like to ask Kim Barney to join us at the podium. And before Kim starts, I'm just going to take an opportunity to do a shout out for Kim leading this team and the team that really sits with her doing this work. And Dr. Neal supports and Dr. Dennis supports Kim, but I think we could all be her biggest cheerleader because the paperwork that is associated with this is really just extremely time consuming, and it is a lot of work, and Kim navigates that beautifully. So she probably is dying because I'm saying this here as she's standing there, but she deserves the recognition for sure. So with that, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hubbard. That was very kind. I appreciate that. I would like to invite Kristen Ridgway to come join me. She's going to also present some of the information. Kristen's been helping a lot this year with leading our KESA district leadership team, and so this is an opportunity for her to be part of this process. So good evening, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity to share with you an update on all things KESA from year 4. Our goals this evening is we want to give you a little review, KESA, and give you a quick update on what KESA is and where Shawnee Mission is in that 5-year continuous improvement cycle. And then we want to share with you the logistics and some of the information about our outside visiting team, our OVT team, and most importantly, the feedback that we received from them that then drives our work going into year 5 as we prepare for accreditation. So this first slide just really kind of is a review of what KESA is. It stands for Kansas Education Systems Accreditation. It is a 5-year improvement cycle, and over the course of that 5-year, you start out in the early stages of year 1, analyzing your data and participating in a needs assessment. And we have some teachers in the room who may remember doing the dots around the 4R area rubrics at your building, where you identified your our needs basically at both the building and district level. And so that was done in year 1, and then we analyzed that data and we brought it to the KESA DLT, and the KESA DLT helped us choose our 2R areas. That's what the state was calling it at the time, and you may remember those were relationships and responsive culture. And then, of course, throughout this process, we work very closely with all things in the strategic plan. Everything we do with KESA is really an extension of what's happening in the strategic plan. I'm just making sure that we're in compliance and getting that documentation in on time and that it's thorough and complete. So based on that work, the district identified their goals through the strategic plans, and our schools identified their school goals based on their data from their needs assessment and developed their school improvement plans. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Okay. All right, no problem. So anyway, based on that, then we determined our goals and we carried out the action plans, whether that be the strategic plan at the district level or those individual school improvement plans. And then we've continued implementing those plans, and then we're now, as we're nearing the end of our 5-year cycle, really heavy into analyzing the data and determining next steps for our next cycle. So accreditation is at the district level. Some of you may remember that the state used to accredit the individual schools. They are now accrediting entire districts, and our schools fall under that. And so the work that is happening at the district and at the schools align, and that's part of the process, is to make sure there's tight alignment between that. As I've already mentioned, I think we're in year 4. We just completed year 4 this past year, and we're moving into the last year where we will apply for accreditation. And big part of this is accountability. So you're going to hear a lot of the results matter. And so we are held accountable through different measures. One of those is we complete an annual system report every year that is submitted to not only our OVT team, but also to the state. And I believe you may have received a copy of our year 4 report already, or if not, it's coming. So that you can see entirety what we've submitted to the state and to the OVT. And then we have our OVT visit, which Kristen's going to talk about more here shortly. And then we continuously are monitoring our progress, analyzing that data, and reporting it back to the state.
So thank you for having us here tonight. As Kim said, I've been working with her on the district leadership team this past year in a district administrative role, but prior to that, I have been on the district leadership team since year 1, and so I definitely remember those initial dots with the needs analysis. But this year, something being in year 4 just came together, and if you look at this graphic on the screen and the cogs that ensure we have a strong organization, so those 3 components of accreditation for the state are compliance, results, and then our quality growth process. And so it's really interesting to be working with the DLT, and everyone gets really worked up and worried, and will we get accredited? And so Kim is very wonderful for putting people at ease and saying, hey, we are always in compliance. If something is the law, we do it. There is no concern about compliance. With results, we really emphasize that it's not just performance results, it's performance and growth. And so you'll see reflected in our goals that we know you have the very specific goals, but we'll review them in a moment too, of what those performance and student growth goals look like. And then the quality growth process. It was really important to be sure that the team and everyone involved understands what a quality growth process means. And it means that we don't just have goals, but that we have challenging goals, and that those challenging goals, we have action plans to execute them, and then we're monitoring our progress all along the way. So we're in year 4, and with year 5 on the horizon, we're ready to do this work.
So this slide is just really kind of a review of the timeline, so we'll go over this quickly. We are actually in our 6th year, because if you look at 2020, 2021, the district decided to take advantage of the KISA pause year that the state provided, which allowed us to suspend or pause, if you will, the formal structures of KISA. So that meant we didn't convene our DLT, we didn't bring in district site council, we didn't submit the lengthy reports, we just had to do a quick update of where we were. That did not mean that we stopped focusing on our goals and implementing our action plans. It just meant that we suspended the formal structures that we report back to the state, which then allowed our teachers the time and energy that they needed to focus on themselves and their students during that challenging time due to COVID. So as we've said before, we just completed year 4. We refined our KISA goals, and we continue to implement, monitor our progress, and we're moving into year 5. This spring, we will be applying for accreditation as we continue to analyze our data along that way.
Okay, so as Kim mentioned earlier, our 3 focus areas, relationships, responsive culture, and results, that was based on our initial needs analysis in year 1. So I like to think of it that the first 2 bullets are vehicles, our relationships with students, stakeholder engagement, DEIB, all the things that you see listed there, and our responsive culture, PLCs, RTI, individual plans of studies. Those are all the things that we are doing to achieve those results. And then with the results, these are reflective of our specific goals. So as I mentioned before, the academic growth, so we're looking at our Acadience assessments and data in the elementary schools, and then on the secondary schools, our NWEA map for English language arts and math. But then the most interesting to me is the college and career readiness goals that we have. We've worked really hard to identify multiple pathways that students can take to demonstrate that they have proficiency in our college and career ready. So it's not just state assessment scores. I mean, we know state assessment scores are what we're judged by, but we're looking for those other avenues like market value assets. We're looking at ACT scores. We're looking at individual plans of study and other means to get as many ways as possible possible for students to demonstrate that proficiency for college and career readiness. And then, of course, social and emotional learning. This is the newest of goals, not that the process itself is new, but we have panorama data that we collect based on an assessment administered twice a year, the panorama assessment, to measure students' social and emotional learning. And so those are the three major components that we bring together to focus on our results. And so then the other important component is our engagement with that outside visiting team. So the OVT is designed for two purposes. One is to coach and mentor, provide us feedback, and be that partner, a professional partner in our work, but then also for accountability, the fidelity, and being transparent with all of our process. So you can see there that we had many people involved with our 2020 OVT on May 11th. Many of the people in the room here were a part of that. I thought it was a fabulous day because it's like all of the work that we do all the time that sometimes feels like, does it really make a difference? You see it all come together. And so that was very exciting. Over 50 stakeholders were there that day. Over the last 4 years, not including the pause year, we've built the team up and we've had more and more people involved with this day. This year, new was including students in that day as well. So we had students from Marion Park who came and spoke about the Leader in Me program that helps them. They were able to express and show their growth in their academics and their social emotional learning. And then we also had Dr. Bates with us and students that work with him through the Youth and Equity Stewardship, which was just fantastic to see those students that day and have them speak so eloquently, young adults just expressing their learning. So it was a great day, and we learned a lot from the OVT. And so then I'll turn it over to Kim to talk through the actual feedback from them.
So after the conclusion of the OVT visit, as well as once the OVT team had a chance to review all our documentation and our report and all the supporting documents to go along with it, they are charged each year with providing an OVT summary, which is the copy of the report that you did receive along with this presentation. And so I'm going to share with you the feedback that we got, our summary of that feedback that we got from them. So first and foremost, compliance update. And you remember Kristen said that's one of the 3 components of accreditation. The OVT noted that we have met all of our compliance and foundational structures, and they also said they have no concerns with the fidelity of implementation, which speaks to our quality growth process. So that's 2 out of the 3 right there, which I think that's something that we should be very proud of and can celebrate. Additionally, there are a summary of strengths listed here. They were very complimentary of our engagement in the process and engaging a variety of stakeholders in that process and our fidelity through connection to our strategic plan. I mean, as I said, it's not something we do that's different. It is the strategic plan. We're just looking at it through the lens of the state requirements for KISA. They recognize that we are developing and are coordinating systems to support a continuous improvement, which that's one of our strategies in the strategic plan is that we have systems in place. So that speaks very highly to the implementation of the strategic plan. They were pleased that we used multiple data points to monitor student progress, and we tried to make sure that we had multiple pathways for every student to be able to have a way to connect to our goals and make them relevant. They shared that they felt a strength is our RTI system that we have in place to support students academically, as well as the district's commitment to PLCs, and that they feel like they heard from us in both our written work, but as well as the stakeholder collaboration that occurred during the visit, that rigor is important to us, and that we know that we've lost some ground for our students due to learning loss due to the pandemic, but we haven't lowered our expectations. It's still very evident that we expect our students to do well, and we're putting things in place to help them meet those goals. And then lastly, they noted that we're on track to meet accreditation requirements, which is really what you want to hear at the end of year 4 as you're getting ready to climb that top of that big hill moving into year 5. Some things that they noted for feedback as far as things to consider. They encourage us to continue and ensure that as we work with different stakeholders and we form different committees and we have different representation, that our representation reflects our school district's demographics, and that's just important. And we do that through our DEIB work, and that's an emphasis for us already. But they just wanted to continue us to encourage us to continue that. We had asked for feedback around individual plans of study and how we can make them more relevant. And what they kind of shared with us is, continue to find ways to increase the connection for our students between their interest surveys that they take through Zello and the other one's escaping me, youth science, right? Okay. That we increase the connection from the surveys, the student interest surveys that the students take, and the course enrollment. So making those connections between you're interested in this, here's some courses maybe you should consider. So I'm trying to find ways to make that more relevant is a challenge across the state. We hear that from, they shared that in their districts as well as other districts they work with, this is not something that's new, but we just got to continue to keep working at it and making it better. They were pleased with what they saw and heard about real-world learning, but they encouraged us to continue to expand those opportunities across even more schools. And then continue planning for sustainability. And then lastly, the importance of, as we evaluate everything through data analysis, as we are wrapping up, getting closer to the end of our strategic plan, and we start reviewing that process as well as our KISA process, that we consider identifying what's really getting the biggest bang for the buck, if you will. What initiatives are working well, and what are some that maybe we're not getting as big of a buck, and are there some things we could strategically abandon so that it would allow more time for the district and the teachers and all of our resources to be funneled into the things that are making the greatest impact for our students. And so that will be something that we continue to work through, not just through year 5, but also as you guys revisit the strategic plan as it starts to wind down and we go through that review process of what's next on that. Lastly, they acknowledge that our data points are moving in the right direction, so we're trending back upwards. There's obviously room for growth. They recognize that we did have, our students were significantly impacted by the pandemic. And the work that we're going to do over the next couple of years is really critical to make sure that we continue to reestablish those trends upward and that we continue to provide what our students need to reach their full potential. At this time, we would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that went into a very condensed report to a very long process of the continuous improvement and
You're welcome. Thank
the
you.
accreditation work that's done. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. I'll just start at the horn. Do you want to go ahead? So Ms. Borgman, why don't we just start with you with questions
Yeah.
and then we'll work our way down.
A good point, Dr. Sinclair, about taking a lot of condensed information, in fact, 4 years worth into this presentation. So very good job. Congratulations. Sounds like the feedback was excellent. A couple quick questions for you. So when the team, this compliance team gives you this information, then what does it look like when you are hearing this feedback and trying to make improvements and trying to take the feedback and make direct changes within the district? What does that look like? How does that process look then?
So first
make
step,
sense?
yeah. So
Okay.
the first step is sharing this information with you. Then we will be sharing it with building principals, and our KISA DLT will reconvene. We'll share the information with them. And so we'll take those things, especially those considerations. We'll celebrate the strengths and the things we're doing well, but we'll also look more closely at those considerations. So I'll give you an example from year 3 to year 4 because we've already acted on it, so it might be easier to explain what we did and why. So we received feedback from the OVT in year 3 that we needed to really narrow our focus. We had a lot of data. I don't know if any of you remember looking at the documents. We had so many SMART goals, and we still monitor that data. Don't get me wrong. Dan's still collecting it. We're still looking at it. But we really tried to narrow in on what, from a KISA standpoint, when we take this information to the Accreditation Review Council, and they look at it to make a recommendation for our accreditation status. Do we have a narrow focus? And part of that was was within our strategic plan. So it was easily defined, but still we had to make some choices. We had to let some things go that maybe we didn't continue to emphasize because we were trying to monitor too much. When you're doing everything, are you really doing anything well? So we just kind of narrowed that focus down, and that's the role that the KISA DLT played, looking at that data and looking at our strategic plan and making sure our KISA goals align directly with our district strategic plan objectives, and what are those most important or critical measures that we should be using. Doesn't mean we're not looking at other data, because we obviously are, but from a CASA standpoint, narrowing that focus. So that would be an example of taking year 3 feedback into year 4.
That's great. Do you
Thank
mind
you.
if I ask my next question, or would you prefer I wait, Dr. Sinclair?
Why don't we just go around?
Yeah,
And then we'll come
sounds
back
good.
unless it's highly related. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, Ms. Housley.
Thank you so much. I loved getting the feedback in the accompanying report as well, in addition to the PowerPoint. And it was nice to see the analysis of what the actual changes from some of the things that have been implemented through the strategic plan. And I'm not sure what page this is on, because there aren't page numbers, but the thing that really struck me was the discipline and attendance rates, and looking at the aggregate data, that 92% of students had 0 discipline incidents, with a target for May of 2023 of 95%. Knowing that we had looked at the disciplinary, like that, the handbooks, gosh, was that last year? The matrix last year?
Yep.
And then knowing that we have a target that we're working towards getting better at. And then moving forward with the suspension rates, and then it said it was unclear what the target for May 2023 was with the suspension rates. So are we unclear because we haven't set whether or not we have a target, or are we unclear whether or not we can make it? Is that?
I think we just need to look at what our target should be. We just need to analyze that data and look at that. Dan, do you remember that? I remember us talking about it, and we just were waiting to get some. And another thing, positive is you saw things are improving, and a lot of that is due to the changes. But it also probably didn't hurt that a lot of our kids are remote, and so we anticipate when we get that data this year, which I know Dan's working on, that we may see.
But you did compare it to 1920 as opposed to the year everyone was remote. So,
Right.
so that is, you're comparing it to the year that before things went haywire. So
Right.
that, you can see the market progress there.
Yes.
But I'm just pointing out that I appreciate the collection of information that shows that specifically that the relationship initiatives, the social emotional learning
Yep.
initiatives, the DEI initiatives, like we are able to track
Yep.
how that impacts learning and success for students. And I think that that's really important for folks at home to know, so that if they're not getting it out of the PowerPoint, to go in and to read the accompanying report, because I think a lot of times with the soft fuzzy things, people view it as like a feel good, but there's actual like trackable data to back it up. So that was my whole point, and that was a roundabout way of getting there. But thank you, Dr. Sinclair.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my question might be both for you all and for Dr. Hubbard. And so I'm going to look at the post-secondary success, the kind of the report on there. And if I'm reading that correctly on the detailed report, there was some pretty meaningful growth in the percentage of students who achieved at least one market value asset. It looked like it jumped from, around 20-something% to 51% of the graduates. So like a 25% year-over-year growth. And so that's a significant success, I think, in that focus on our real-world learning and creating those opportunities for both career and college, reflecting both of those. And so I didn't know if there was any additional thoughts or conversations that the OVT shared with that. It's kind of part one, and then part two. I guess I'm thinking about that funding cliff coming, how important was bringing on those counselors to focus on that, and bringing on that position within the partnership with the Education Foundation to have a point person at the district?
Well, obviously, it had a huge impact on data. I think also just the semantics that we were all talking the same language, and those 5 real-world learning counselors really getting kids connected, and all of us just knowing the data collection, that we're all talking the same language, I think was huge. But the business to education liaison, I think, is a huge impact on this. And, Laura Harsh really getting out and finding opportunities for kids, and then those counselors connecting the kids to those opportunities. I really can't wait to see our data. in the next few weeks, because I think it's even going to have a much larger increase. I'll be shocked if it doesn't, just with so many opportunities that we have. So we're pretty progressive, and there's 40, I think we decided 40 districts doing the real world learning, and I think our data is pretty overwhelmingly great compared to some of our peers. So we're happy with our real world learning data and looking forward to the continued growth with that. But I do think those, you're right, they're ESSER funded, and so, you know, whether they remain after the next 2 years or not, those are all tough conversations we're going to have, not only with those positions, but with a lot of positions. But I absolutely do think they're making a difference on real world learning, as well as supporting our high schools with other initiatives.
And as far as the OVT, I mean, they didn't really give a whole lot more feedback, other than they really mentioned there's a strong connection between that and the sustainability, planning for sustainability, because they recognize in our report, we shared a lot of the things we're doing are from the ESSER funds, and that, you know, there will have to be some tough decisions made. But the great thing is that it is making a difference now, which is what ESSER was intended, was to you know, temporarily, what can we put in place in the short term to help our kids get what they need? And it seems like what we're putting in place is having a positive impact on results.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to Sarah Goodburn next.
Thank you for that opportunity. Yeah, I just thought it was a great report. It really was. It just seemed so positive, and I like this new format. I like what they're. I thought it was just really great news. So I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this. Look forward to what happens in year 5. But and Mary, I think, or I can't remember who said about the market value assets, but it was 51%, up from like 25%. So that's fabulous. With a goal of 60%, and they're sure that we're going to make it. So anyway, I think that those are so important. So I really appreciated this report, and I loved reading it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That would take us to Mr. Stratton.
Thank you. I appreciate the report. I appreciate all the work that's gone into the successes that were reported, and my board peers have asked all the good questions. So I'm happy for it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Humbry.
Thank you. I guess it feels like a timing question, because I'm hearing how much of what you guys are doing pulls from the strategic plan. And I'm also hearing that this cycle ends in a year, and our strategic plan ends in a couple of years. Like, do we try to make an effort as a district for the strategic plan and the KISA processes to line up in any way? It's like a chicken and an egg question in my head. Like, which one feeds most off the other?
So that's a great question. The pause year helped us, because otherwise we would have been a year ahead again. So that actually was an unintended consequence of that decision. For KISA, we will wrap up our 5-year and apply for accreditation, and we'll continue to, you know, carry out the things of the strategic plan. As we go into next fall and we start year 1, remember that graphic says we do a needs assessment. We will develop, and in this cycle, the state kind of gave us that. They said, you need to look at these 4R rubrics, and you need to do it. Now we have a lot more leeway in what that looks like, and a lot more responsibility. So I would envision working closely with Dr. Neal, Dr. Hubbard, all the folks on the strategic plan to make sure whatever we're putting in place next fall as part of that needs assessment process required for KISA also aligns with how we're getting feedback on our strategic plan and how we would evolve that process. So I feel like it's okay that it's a year behind. I feel a lot better than I did when it was 2, because it did get a little dicey in the early years, because if you remember, we didn't have the strategic plan in year 1. So we just really tried to stay with doing exactly what we needed to do, but not getting out too far ahead, because we also had change of leadership coming on board, as you're very much aware. And so we wanted to make sure that we were putting things in place that no matter what that new vision and that new leadership might be, that we could carry it out. So it's just really about staying in the parameters of what you're given, and just going back to the strategic plan and making sure everything we do aligns with that.
I think it's going to align really nicely, actually.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll come back if you have more. Okay. Ms. Boyd-Norona, would you like?
Yes. Thank you. So, as the appointed real-world learning liaison for the board, I'm extremely encouraged with the opportunities shown and displayed in this presentation. So I'm just over the moon for that particular component. One thing that really stood out for me that kind of puts it all into perspective is that the report, the OBT acknowledged that the next 2 years are critical years to reestablish the solid upward trend. That was a powerful statement that really stood out to me and just kind of struck a chord. So that was a monumental point amidst all the data in this report, which is fabulous. Last but not least, I commend your efforts in helping, and I say this all the time, even on the data sheet, is that I applaud your efforts and the district's effort in helping the data tell our story. We all know that if it's good data in, that we collect, it will yield much more valuable, authentic data and results for impact and growth. So I'm over the moon. I love this report. I love the continued collaborative effort of helping the data help us tell our story. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, April. Okay, Ms. Borgman. Okay. Ms. Ousley?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I did have one other follow-up, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think you had talked a little bit about one of the recommendations or kind of further continuing improvement was around the connecting the dots between students, their personalized learning plans, and then the survey data about kind of what their interests were. How does that kind of connect, and again, I'm sorry, this might be more of a doctoral question I'm thinking about. How does that connect in with the master plan? Like I'm thinking about that survey, does that lead to what courses are offered in terms of electives and things like that?
I'm going to ask Dr. Dennis to jump in here because I know he's been doing some work with high school principals on individual plans of study.
I was just curious how it connected with the students expressing their interest in courses, how that connects with the courses being offered, the survey data, and the planning.
It potentially could. We are in the process. We're kind of waiting also for the state to give us some updated graduation requirement guidance. But as we get that, we're also thinking about how does our course offering align with our expectations for real-world learning? How does that align with our expectations for a portrait of a graduate? So bringing that all together is the work of the next year or maybe two.
Okay. Thank you.
And I could speak to that for just a moment as well. Prior to this role, I was an instructional coach in a middle school, and we used Zello and the interest inventories, and we were really excited about the impact that it would have when we were using it in full implementation throughout the school year, because then when students go to enroll in high school as for their freshman year, we were having them look at that information, look at their interest inventories, look at the courses that it was recommending, and it was a great tool to help them plan their courses of study throughout high school. The trick was it being an embedded year-long process so that when they were doing their enrollment in February, they already had that information. So I think like anything else, it's a matter of us, the pandemic putting the halt on that kind of thing to happen year-round. But when in place and being used throughout the year, the programs are really effective for driving the students' course development.
That's really exciting. Thank you for that. And just an observation, I was just thinking about the connection between KISA and the strategic plan. Like it's just so apparent, I think, in especially reading through the detailed report. I was just thinking about that. I could see a really clear link between like the focus on relationship and relevance, which were kind of KISA terms, I think, to all the work that's being done with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and all the individual planning and personalized planning for students. And I mean, there's so many connections and overlaps. You can really see it in the language and the actions and the strategies. So thank you for that. All right. Did you have another question? Yeah,
sorry, I had one more. Thank you guys for the
Sorry
report.
about that.
I love this stuff, so apologies for having one additional question here. One of the recommendations they made that I really appreciated was about this idea of strategic abandonment, which is notoriously the hardest thing for any even small entity to do, but put in a really large entity like Shawnee Mission School District. So I'd just be curious to hear your guys' thoughts as sort of experts in the way our district operates on how you even begin a conversation like that.
Well, I think first of all, it'll be around looking at the data and pinpointing what do we think we're getting the most bang for our buck, or what's having the greatest impact, and making sure that we prioritize those things and keep that. Are there things that either we've accomplished that we can I don't want to say let go like they weren't important, but it's been done and we can shift our focus around our resources supporting the things that haven't been accomplished yet, as well as, again, as we wrap up, as we're going into that revision or that review of the strategic plan, seeing, we may not do much for this year. I mean, we've kind of tightened the focus already for this year coming up, but I think next year's going to be pivotal as we work hand in hand between strategic plan review and KISA, that we're really looking at data, we're taking feedback from our stakeholders, and that we're realizing less can be more with deeper focus. But yet it's really hard because there's not one thing that we're doing that isn't important and people aren't passionate about and doesn't impact kids. There's probably just some things that have a greater impact, and with limited time, resources, people, all the things, we want to make sure that we're focusing around the things that are going to have the greatest impact, and that we don't have so many things that we feel like we're a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it's important and it's hard. It's hard for educators in general to let go because we know that everything we do matters and we're passionate about what we do, but sometimes we're our own worst enemy there and we don't want to let go. So it'll take some strong leadership from the district to help people navigate that, but it is important because you can't just keep filling the plate up and never taking things off.
I would also add that I think that that's maybe a really big decision for individual buildings because that's where things get layered on. I mean, as a district, we have systems, and I mean, even speaking as a principal, I understand because we love things that feel good, and there are a lot of things that we do that feel really good that don't have a huge impact on student achievement. And I think that's a good conversation for PTAs and for site councils because we do a lot of things in our schools that feel really good, but at the end of the day, they're probably don't have as great of impact on student achievement as other things do. And so I think really asking those questions about what gives us the best student achievement? How do we get increased student achievement? So, and those are some of the things we focused on at the leadership retreat, and really that we walked away with those 3 words of increased student achievement, and that's what we have to focus on.
Thank you.
Okay, if I'm looking up and down the dais and at the phone, if there are no other questions, we'll close this out and move on to 3.2. Is that good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both and the whole team for all that work.
Thank you,
And
Kim and
information.
Kristen.
Okay, so next is on the agenda is 3.2, the human resources and report on substitute services with Kelly Services.
Yeah, so Dr. Higgins is joining us along with some partners from Kelly Services to talk about substitute services.
So, Dr. Hubbard, I think I'll go ahead and kick us off, and thank you again for giving us some time this evening to speak with you about our substitute services. As you know, we partner with Kelly Educational Staffing for our sub-services. And over the last several years, they've been a terrific partner with the district. And I think what you will see tonight is how collaborative they have been and how they are being very, very collaborative with us this school year. In the presentation, Dr. Higgins and Kelly will provide you an update of our services and really take some time to share some initiatives that we feel will greatly impact how we're able to put substitutes in our classrooms this coming school year. And in addition, there will be a consent action item for you to consider that partners with this presentation. So with that, Dr. Higgins, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Schumacher, Dr. Hubbard, Dr. Gilhouse, members of the board. The presentation and information presented tonight will focus specifically on the first HR department goal that focuses on surrounding each student with the best teachers possible. One aspect of providing students with the best teachers possible requires us to also look at the part of our operation that exists when our certified teachers have to be absent. Even when our certified teachers are gone, as a district, we are committed to surrounding our students with the best teacher that we can. Substitute teachers that step into our classrooms on a daily basis fill a critical role within our school system, and so we want to spend a little bit of time tonight discussing that. Let's begin by talking about the partnership that we have with Kelly Education. With us this evening from Kelly Education are Keith Elliott, who is the Senior Director of Client Services, and Isaac Carlson, who is a Client Services Manager. Shawnee Mission and Kelly Education have had a partnership since 2017. Within our partnership, Kelly Education handles all aspects of our substitute teacher program. They are responsible for recruiting, hiring, and onboarding of substitute teachers for the district. They handle the daily fulfillment of sub-jobs. They handle the engagement of their subs on a daily basis and getting them into classrooms on a daily basis. They're responsible for payment of those subs and for the offering of any incentive programs. The subs that work in our classrooms are employees of Kelly Education, and obviously there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot behind the scenes that we at the district don't see or manage. Kelly Education provides daily and long-term subs for our classroom teachers, librarians, and nurses. Additionally, they provide the building subs that are currently in place in all of our buildings. As Dr. Schumacher mentioned, I do want to take this opportunity to stress that this really is a collaborative partnership that exists between the district and Kelly Education. There are continuous conversations that take place between our HR team and the KES team on a number of different topics related to the service that they provide to us. The gentlemen here with us this evening are always up for those conversations and truly are partners in wanting to improve the service that they provide. They recognize that there's always room to improve and engage with us around ways to improve, and for that we are definitely appreciative. Let's move briefly into talking about some absence-related data from the 2021-2022 school year. This first table shows the employee absences by employee title. This table shows the top 20 absence rates by employee title. You can see at the very top of this list is the employee title vacancy, and you may be thinking, well, what exactly is vacancy? Absences titled vacancy are typically those jobs filled by our building subs and managed by our building secretaries. As you can see, these positions equate to approximately 36% of our total absences, but they're filled at a 98.4% fill rate. And that really highlights the benefit of those building subs. This next table shows absence data by school. As you can see on this table, the top 10 schools at the top of the list are our secondary schools. They had the most reported absences last year. This isn't a big surprise, as our secondary schools have our largest staff sizes, and so we would expect them to have the most absences. These 10 secondary schools account for nearly 40% of the total absences for the district. The next 10 schools on the list are all elementary schools. And you can see that these 10 schools account for an additional 20% of absences. Obviously, we know that we're going to have absences throughout the district, and this is where the partnership with KES and Kelly Education becomes so important, to really look at the data on a regular basis, to see what our school and employee type trends are, and to brainstorm on ways to better use our resources. This next slide highlights our fill rates. The top two tables show the fill rate by month and then by day of the week. The trends that you see here are no different than what we expected. As you look at the monthly data, we started off the year very strong in regards to our fill rate. As the months came and went and our absence numbers went up, we did see a dip in our fill rate. January, think back to January of last year and all the craziness that was going on. It was a very difficult month for fill rates. Omicron was spreading like crazy. Not only did we have a number of teachers that were absent, but our sub pool was impacted as well, and this led to a fill rate that was below normal. It comes as no surprise as well that our lowest fill rate day occurred on Fridays. That is definitely a trend that is common from year to year and from district to district. Overall, for the total, as you can see, we ended the 2021-22 school year with 29,817 total absences. Of those, 25,054 jobs were filled, which resulted in a fill rate of 84.0%. How exactly does that compare to previous years? So you can see on this table the fill rates over the years. 2018, 2019, we had a 99.1% fill rate. That is absolutely remarkable. 1920, 97.0%, 2021, 94%, and then this last school year, as we just mentioned, an 84.0% fill rate. I know that our partners from Kelly Education will be the first to tell you that 84.0% fill rate is not acceptable, and that they are going to do everything they can to get those fill rates back up to levels that we are used to seeing. During the conversations that we've had over the last several months, the KES team is projecting that we will see a return to a fill rate of over 90% for this upcoming school year. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Keith Elliott and give him an opportunity to share more information about the service that Kelly provides and what we can expect during this upcoming school year. Keith?
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate you all having me tonight. Thank you for the time to speak here. And I didn't know Jeremy was going to say so many nice things about the partnership, but I got to say that goes both ways. We don't get that partnership from some of the districts that we work with, the level of conversation and level of involvement that we see from the HR staff here. So very much want to give kudos to their team as well. So as you can see on this first slide here, and I hate to come in right after we show our lowest fill rates in a couple years, right? I can tell you over the last couple years with Kelly, they've been, I think as many educators would agree, some of the most difficult times we've seen. There are less teachers going into the field right now. We know that there's a teacher shortage to begin with. You top that off with the pandemic, and Kelly saw fill rates that dipped on average with our clients about 15 to 20% last year. Shawnee Mission was impacted less obviously than what we've seen previous years, but we do expect those numbers to start bouncing back this year. We did see that big spike in January where we saw Omicron. That was something that hit us nationally, but what we have started to see since that time, since quarantine periods have kind of gone down, and since the statistics with COVID have changed, we've started to see a return to getting back into the classrooms. We've heard from a lot of retired teachers that are saying, hey, I'm ready to get back into the classroom now. We've started to see our hiring numbers go up. As you'll notice on this slide here, we look in the month of March. That was our highest hiring month of the year. We never see that time of year. That was coming straight out of Omicron, where we started to see that confidence return. We typically have next to no hiring in April and May, just because it's the end of the school year and people aren't really prepping for the next school year. So we are starting to see return to classrooms, and that's why we're projecting that we'll be back over 90% this year for the district. You can see the average requests on there. We did have the big spike in January. Normally in January we have one of our slowest months, and you can see that was one of our largest months this year on average requests per day. And then you can see Jeremy's already kind of referenced the absence type breakout that's on there. Oops, sorry, I hit the wrong thing. Sorry, you're good again. Okay. This next chart shows the absence, vacancies, and lead time. This is something that we have talked to the district about in the past, and actually this year the district did a really good job. This is something that we always talk about. The biggest correlation between fill rates and any other thing that I can share with you is how long we have to fill those jobs. And you can see on this chart here that our same day, next day, we typically target under 30% for our highest performing school districts. However, during COVID, when we had people calling off a little bit more frequently last minute because maybe they had a sniffle or a fever, we certainly saw those last minute absences go up. So having that at 33% this year was a good number for the district. We expect that will go down even more this year. Next one here shows kind of our time to fill absences. So you can see that most of the absences within the district are filled in less than 1 hour. So once they're put into our system and we get a hold of those absences, 41% of those absences are filled within the first hour. We have 17% 1 to 6 hours. You can see the chart on through there. So again, that lead time, very important to us. We do fill them quickly, but that lead time is a very important aspect of what we're trying to do. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that Kelly is planning here as we continue to move forward. As we've talked to the district, I have Isaac with me today. Isaac's the client service manager who's been servicing the district. What we have decided to do in talking with the district, we think we can get fill rates up, and we feel like by putting a resource that is dedicated to Shawnee Mission, right now Isaac covers multiple districts in the Kansas City area. What we're doing in partnership with the district is we're going to put an on-site account manager here within the district to focus strictly on Shawnee Mission substitutes. So we're adding a resource this year in order to give increased attention on the sub-needs of the district. That's at Kelly's cost. It's a Kelly employee, so Kelly is taking on that cost. We do have an increased investment in our Kelly fulfillment team. We've expanded that team. We've grown. We've added new folks that will be calling out in the mornings for absences for you. So we have expanded that team and increased our investment in our fulfillment team. Our recruiting budget has been increased as we're starting to see people return to classrooms. We are rebuilding pools, sub pools. We did this morning. I don't know if anyone saw it, but we were on Fox 4, Good Day Kansas City, doing an advertisement this morning. We went on with the team there. We will do those things more often as we see opportunities that make sense in the market. This is the time when hiring really picks up right before school starts, and so I expect that you'll see more of those types of things for us in the coming weeks. One of the other things that's become more difficult, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in your full-time staff as well, and that's retaining employees. There are a lot of folks that kind of come in the front door, and we've got folks going out the back door too. And so a couple things that Kelly has done to try and help with that is we've expanded our insurance offerings to our subs. And we've also, and I didn't put this on the slide for us tonight, but we've also added a partnership program with a couple of colleges that allow teachers that are substitutes with us to attend college at a reduced rate so that they can, if they want to, go on to become a teacher. So we're also working to try to grow more teachers, full-time teachers, that can be brought into the districts in the area. The more jobs that you guys fill on the front end, so the more teachers that you guys have, the less jobs we have to fill. So we are trying to create more teachers, and we expect that to help us retain teachers as well. And then I'm going to turn back over to Jeremy for this last portion.
Thanks, Keith. As a final way to improve our fill rate for next school year, we are proposing an increase in pay for our daily subs, our long-term subs, and our nurse subs. As Dr. Schumacher mentioned, this will be an action item for you later in tonight's meeting. So with that, let's talk a little bit about our rates renewal for next year. Here you will see how our current sub rates compare to the surrounding Johnson County school districts. We realize that subs have a choice in where they provide their services, and we want to be as competitive as we possibly can be. As such, we are recommending an increase in pay rates for our substitute teachers and nurses. Those recommended pay rates can be seen on this slide. So this slide shows a comparison of the pay rates from the 2021-22 school year to the upcoming 22-23 school year. Also included in this table are the proposed markup rates. The markup is what we pay Kelly Education for their services. As you can see from the table, we are recommending a $5 increase to our daily subs and our long-term subs. We are also recommending a bump in pay for our daily nurse subs and our long-term subs. Each of those equate to approximately 3.7% is what the raise is for those. When it comes to our building subs, we are recommending that their daily pay remain the same as it was last year. The reason for this is we wanted there to be a differentiation between our long-term subs and our building subs because of the planning, the grading, the communication with parents and students, and the other responsibilities that are required of our long-term subs. Also, I want to mention again that the partnership that we have with Kelly Education, they recognized our desire to increase pay rates and partnered with us to help control those administrative costs by decreasing their markup rates for next year. While there still will be an increased cost to the district as we're increasing what we pay our subs, it's not going to be as high as it could have been because of the decrease in that markup, so we're appreciative for that. Finally, as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, Kelly Services is confident in their ability to increase the fill rates as we move into next year. And they're so confident that they actually built into the contract for next year a fill rate guarantee. The details of the fill rate guarantee are summarized here. Essentially, Kelly is guaranteeing that we will see a 90% fill rate for the first semester. And if we don't see that fill rate, then they will decrease the markup for second semester by 0.5%. So it'll go from 1.279 to 1.274. There are some qualifiers that go along with this guarantee related to same-day, next-day absences and the total number of absences. Both of those things the HR department feels totally comfortable with. So again, later in the meeting, you will have an opportunity to take action on those recommended subrates for the 22-23 school year. And at this time, we would stand for any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It was very data informed, which makes it super clear to kind of follow along. So I'm going to start with Ms. Owsley. Do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you for the presentation and all the work. Filling sub positions has been a lot for the last couple of years. I'm looking at the 90% teacher fill rate, which is great considering we have been in previous times, but it does seem like we hit these pinch points with, recently with COVID waves. And so that January month where we were at like 74%, like that was extraordinarily stressful on the system as a whole for everyone in the buildings, trying to cover multiple classrooms, hearing from instructional coaches who were trying to teach in like 3 different spots, and then somebody has to be filling in the cafeteria and all of that stuff. So, staying at 90% as an aggregate for the whole year is fabulous, but what happens if we have one of those months where we are like in crisis mode, where we're at 74%? Like I fully see how we can get to 90%, and that is super reassuring after the last couple of years, but the residual stress from those months like January, like I'm happy about the proposed rate increase to help fill those spots too, but just are we concerned about potential waves and how we're going to address those crucial key pinch points?
Yes and yes. I will say our staffs do a wonderful job of helping out and picking up and covering classes across the district. At the secondary level, one of the things that will help is obviously as we move our secondary teachers to teaching 5 out of 7, there is some time built into their class schedule where they can be asked in a pinch to help cover classes. And so that's a built-in way to help, again, in a pinch, hopefully not on a long term, to help save some of our resources from instructional coaches or pulling our administrators into the classrooms, things like that. Keith, you want to speak to the KES side?
Yeah, and I'll say we look at that January, and that was frightening, I think, for all of us at that point. We try to balance, we have to balance that. We have to have enough work for our subs with that aligns kind of with the needs that the district has. And it's very difficult for us to keep a sub pool happy that's big enough to cover big spikes like that when it spikes, when there aren't enough jobs, when it's not spiking. And so always those big swings, and we typically look at your Aprils and your Mays as the times where our fill rates are a little bit lower, because that's when we start seeing those spikes. The January one, another part of that is that when the January one pops up, our subs aren't normally expecting there to be a lot of jobs in January. Our subs are a little bit expecting it to be a little bit lighter in January. So it is a challenge to do that. What we do, and to one of the points that Jeremy made earlier, is we partner very closely with the district, so we can do things like looking ahead at things like maybe if we know that there's going to be heavy use days coming up, and that's what we expect our account manager to be able to do. So they can be looking ahead. They're going to be focused strictly on Shawnee Mission. So what our hope is there, that if they look ahead and they say, okay, normally on a Friday we would see 190 absences, something like that. But this Friday, I can already see we've got 220. So they're reaching out to Mike, they're reaching out to Jeremy, and they're saying, hey, what can we do to try to control absences on these days? And so we have partnered very closely, not only with Shawnee Mission, but with other districts to say, hey, if you're going to be gone on Friday, give us a heads up, or if you can cancel that absence or push it to another day, work with us on that, and then we can help try to avoid some of those spikes that we see from time to time. So we do think that dedicated account manager will be very helpful in making sure that happens.
Can I ask just one follow-up? Sure. How many districts have a dedicated account manager?
In Kansas City, as of right now, 1. You guys will be 2.
All right, well, I like that answer. And the 5 out of 7 is a really good point. I had not thought about that benefit, so that is actually very reassuring. Thank you.
All right. I just had a quick question about the differential pay that we did on Mondays and Fridays. Is that something that is being held in reserve, or is that built into this
It
plan?
is not built in. We paid for it out of ESSER dollars. I suppose if we get to a position where we had to do that, we would just have to ensure our ESSER budget was in a good place to handle it.
Okay.
And I was actually going to mention that, per your question, Ms. Owsley, that this Exhibit A is nimble enough that if we find ourselves really stuck with low fill rates, we could consider a change and start adding those Mondays and Friday incentives if we needed to. And there was money, of course.
Well, I appreciate
Assuming there was money.
Yeah.
I was looking at Russ.
Appreciate the side eye at Russ there. That was very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thank you for the work that went into coming together to kind of come up with an agreement that works for all of us and improves our services for our students and staff. So thank you for that. Ms. Goodburn, do you have a question?
I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on this. I'm looking at the rates renewal 2022, 2023, and it looks like to me that we're increasing the pay, but they have, Kelly has decreased their markup for next year, so it kind of offsets. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that, but thank you.
Mr. Stratton.
My question is about sourcing of substitutes. With the Great Resignation and the labor shortages, I was just curious if we're seeing folks that are coming from one career and kind of at the back end of their career term as opposed to younger folks. I just wondered if we saw any demographic shifts going on there for sourcing of subs.
We haven't really seen a whole lot of demographic. What we did see during the height of the pandemic was a lot of our retired substitutes being a little bit more cautious than maybe they had been in the past. Some of the more higher risk groups that were identified earlier on. We haven't really seen a shift so much in the sourcing. What we have seen over the years, and this is something that has just become, again, you've talked about the Great Resignation. We know that less teachers are going into the field than ever before. We are having to reach deeper into the candidate pool than we ever have before, because nowadays, you're seeing increases to pay from places like Burger King, McDonald's, Walmart, some of these places that are taking up some of the folks that used to say, hey, I can give a couple days a week to teaching. I can do that, and we're starting to see some pressures from that. So we are certainly promoting the fact that we're teaching folks how to become substitute teachers. We are training them. They go through intense training programs to make sure that they know how to do things like, what happens when a kid's acting up in class? How do you handle that situation? How do you diffuse that situation? So certainly from a sourcing standpoint, there are less retired teachers than there were, kind of coming back into substitute teaching than we've seen in the past. We do try to work with your retirement list to reach out to those folks, but there definitely is a shift in having to find more folks ready to come into the classroom and prepping folks to come into the classroom.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Hembury.
That's a good segue to my question, which is when we're in an environment like we have been over the last year or two where we were so desperately in need of subs, I know there were some changes at the state level in terms of just lowering the sort of age and requirements. How do we balance this sort of need for people with the need for quality, and how do you keep quality at the forefront when we are so crunched?
Thanks for bringing that up. So with those TEAL applications that the State Department approved last year, we actually had 5 people who filled that application out. Only one of them followed through and actually worked jobs within the district. So I will say, even though those lessening of requirements came our way, we did not see a huge infiltration of people because of that. So.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. Kelly always is working closely with the district to get feedback on how subs are doing in classrooms. So if you have a sub at some point that gets into a classroom and you feel like they're not providing the level of instruction that's necessary, or that there's some type of issue with the sub, we're quick to exclude a sub from a school district. So certainly at times where we have a shortage of subs to begin with, we ask that, we've had situations in the past where people have excluded a sub because they didn't push in the chairs at the end of the day. And we ask that not be the decision, not at Shawnee Mission. I was just using an example from another district, but we ask that if there are problems or if there are concerns about any of our subs, whether they've gone through that TEAL process or whether they're a retired teacher, that those issues come to us, those are reported through us, and we deal with those incidents quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Boyd-Nerona?
Yes. As a former Kelly Services substitute, I'm having flashbacks, but I can surely appreciate the opportunity to be, that you're offering persons to be either a daily, long-term, or building substitute, because from personal experience, sometimes actually calculating those differences made a difference. And so that may even be a stronger point that maybe you can incorporate in your training as to how persons can leverage that personally. Because at times, while I was a sub, it made a difference between which appointment or assignment that I would assume. But this presentation presented the challenges, but much more so it highlighted resolutions and what most of my board peers have already mentioned, the challenges that occur in the classroom. So overall, I am further encouraged with you coming to the table with resolutions and being accountable for, we're on the front lines with you day to day with substitutes. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. And again, it goes back to the partnership with the individuals at the district. The individuals at the district are very engaged in making sure that we have solutions and are pushing forward. So.
I'm looking up and down. Yes, Ms. Borgman?
Yes. So thank you for your partnership, especially during COVID. I mean, truly, we could not have done it without you. So much gratitude. I had some questions regarding the TEAL applications as well, because I understand that the Kansas Department of Education has continued the relaxation of its requirements through 2023, I understand. And so I just was uncertain how many subs how many subs that Shawnee Mission has that have the TEAL, but it sounds like it is irrelevant. One?
One.
Yep, okay, and so thank you for that. So my question is, a couple questions. First, the insurance offerings, I mean, that's a big attraction for a lot of people is health insurance. And so can you talk to us a little bit more about that benefit for subs?
Yeah, there is a cost associated with it. It's not an included, but it's a reduced cost that subs have the ability to purchase. All they have to do is work one assignment with the district, and then they have the ability to purchase in on an insurance plan that will give them at least some coverages for themselves and their family if they choose to do so. I can get more information to be brought back in that gives specifics on the plan if that's of interest, but certainly is something that we're looking at as a retention factor to keep people in substitute teaching as opposed to going out to looking for other avenues so that they can find that insurance coverage.
Okay, that's great information. And then kind of on just from a district's perspective, because, I understand that Shawnee Mission does compete with other districts in terms of trying to get placements and those kinds of things. So from a district perspective, Dr. Higgins or Dr. Hubbard, I'm not sure who would be most appropriate. What is the process when we do have a sub come into our buildings? What is the process like for making sure that sub has his or her questions met, is there a formal process? Is it? Mm-hmm.
So, putting the principal hat back on, it really comes down to that relationship with those building administrators, that building secretary, and that substitute. And from greeting them in the morning to checking in on them throughout the day to answering any questions or concerns that they may have at the end of the day. I mean, it really does. We rely on our buildings and the folks within our buildings to really help with that relationship and build those relationships so those subs do not only feel comfortable when they're there, but they want to come back day after day after day to help serve. So.
Yeah, because I think that would help with some of the, retention as well as what are we doing on our end, to make sure that Shawnee Mission is putting its best foot forward for a lot of these subs as well. And I think I had one other question. I can't think of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I might add to, we've been kind of talking a little bit about the personalization piece of Kelly Services. I was also a former client of Kelly Services back in 2018, a very short period of substitute teaching when I realized I am not cut out for elementary classrooms. There is a lot of opportunity to collect information, as I recall, from the building teacher, from the substitute themselves. So there's a lot of ways to personalize and preference. And there are, I believe most of the districts in this area are with Kelly too, so that you can go in as a prospective sub and select the districts that you're interested in working with, correct? So this idea for competitive salaries is kind of right at a fingertip when you join the pool for jumping in, is that correct?
Yeah, and I'll say this, so over the years, Kansas has always outpaid Missouri pretty considerably. Missouri is starting to climb that ladder, but they still haven't made it to the level that Kansas has. At this point in the state of Kansas, at least in the Kansas City area, Shawnee Mission is the only district that we support. Most of the districts that we support in the Kansas City area are on the Missouri side of the school district, or of the state. So if they did want to work in other districts, they would have to get licensed go through the sub licensing process over in Missouri as well. So we do have some subs that do go both directions that will work in Missouri and Kansas. Majority just choose to work in one or the other.
All right, so if there are no other questions from folks on...
Dr. Sinclair,
yes.
I have one.
Yes,
A really quick
Ms. Goodman.
question. And I apologize, Dr. Hubbard, for mentioning this or for asking this question without any advance notice. But so if no one knows the answer, then just let me know later. But I just remembered that when I went to the retirement ceremony in May, and I had a couple newly retired teachers that had just retired last year say that because of papers or for some rule, they couldn't actually become a sub until 6 months after their retirement. Am I correct on, or were they correct on that, or is that some kind of our rule or papers rule, or did I totally misunderstand the conversation?
Nope, you did not make that up. Capers does have that waiting period, but they have relaxed it this year to help us with positions like this. So we're currently working with David Smith's team on communicating that out, and we'll work with Kelly as well, making sure that our new retirees know that there is an opportunity to work without that penalty.
I'm having a bit of trouble hearing, but basically you said that yes, that is a rule, but they relaxed it this year?
That's correct. In a nutshell, yes.
Okay, why is it a rule?
It's a capers rule, and I also believe it depends on your age at retirement. So the younger you are when you retire, the longer your waiting period. But it hasn't gone away. They've just relaxed it, correct? It's just now 60 days now?
So if you're 55, it's 6 months. If you're over 62, it's 60 days.
And the restriction is by the Kansas legislature, I believe.
I just know it's a capers rule, but I'm not, Brad may know.
I think the legislature voted on relaxing it. The legislature had to approve the relaxation.
Legislative rule, not a capers rule.
Yeah, that's the legislature.
Is that something that we should address? I mean, is that something that would help us out? I mean, why are we making these people wait? I don't understand.
It was a legislative priority last year, I think. Well, I should.
I would be glad to testify on the issue, given the opportunity.
It was. I don't think it got much action in committee.
Okay. Well, we can talk about it later, but okay, so I didn't misunderstand the conversation. I thank you for the answer.
All right. Dr. Higgins, Keith, Isaac, I think that's it. Thank you very much for being here. Dr. Hubbard, are we? Yep, okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now I just want to mention Mr. Stratton has to sign off here in a couple of minutes, so thank you for being with us.
Ms. Sinclair, just real quick. Kelly, real quick before you leave the room, I would just want to say thank you for the partnership and partnering with us on this problem. We definitely recognize that, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our consent items. And unless there is a request to remove any consent items, I would seek a motion for items 4.1 to 6.5.
So moved, Owsley?
Second, Borgman.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, our first action item is 7.1, authorization to purchase natural gas utilities from Symmetry. Dr. Hubbard.
Yeah, bear with me real quick. I want to read a little bit here. So the recommendation is to purchase natural gas utilities from Symmetry Energy Solutions for approximately $865,000. The amount will fluctuate throughout the fiscal year. Since the situation with the Winter Storm Uri, we have had ongoing conversations with our attorney on utility matters. Council has advised that a month-to-month contract based on the first of the month pricing is still the most competitive pricing for Shawnee Mission. We receive nearly daily email updates from Council regarding energy pricing and review them to ensure that we can anticipate any pricing issues or any need to revise or renegotiate this contract with Symmetry. So it is our recommendation to go with Symmetry as our broker, and the recommendation in front of you.
All right. I'm going to seek a first and second, and then we can take questions if there are any. Do I have
I'll
a?
move approval, Goodburn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Borgman.
All right. Are there any questions, any need for further explanation?
I just have a quick question, or
Yeah.
just to jump in. So I know last year was the one-off year. Do we have anything additional in the contract this year that would be different from last year's contract, or is there anything that we're doing slightly differently?
I'm going to let Russ.
No, it's still the same type of contract that is based on the first of the month pricing. So there's a, I think they call it the overfill clause, and so we tell them what volume we think we're going to use for the month, and then we get that at that pricing. And then if there's anything that goes above and beyond that, then there's a markup on that. So back to the Winter Storm Uri, that volume was set too low. And so our volumes are set a little bit better going into this winter month.
So we're setting our volumes more broadly so as to give ourselves a bigger window.
Yes.
Before that excessive overage could potentially occur.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Russ, I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I assume this is a pricing issue, a competitive pricing to keep our utilities costs low and our dollars going towards instruction would be the.
Always.
Right, okay. All right. Okay, with that, I will ask for a vote. So all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. 7.2, authorization to purchase electric utilities from Evergy.
So I would just add that we continue to use good energy management practices to lessen our electric consumption. One of these practices will be upgrading LED lighting throughout our buildings over the next several years. And in addition, we entered into an agreement with Evergy to purchase electricity from wind farms.
Okay, so that's how that connects, the wind farm connects. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in with the question. Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to?
So moved, Ashley.
All right, a second?
Second, Hembry?
Okay. All in favor say, question, sorry.
Yeah, can we just discuss one of the points? Can we provide clarification about how our energy costs have decreased over the last couple of years due to some of the energy efficiencies? I was, in reading some of it, I think it had dropped significantly.
Russ,
You
can
want me
you
to
jump
pull
in for that?
I just,
Well, some of are you talking about just the total like kilowatts that you're using?
yeah, and then because we had done that and then switching, I can find it in my notes.
I have that information. We
Okay.
have dropped from 2018-19 school year of paying $8.9 million for utilities to $7.4 million in 21-22 school year. Our kilowatt hours have also reduced from 18.5 kilowatt hours to 14.5 kilowatts. So we're being more efficient, not only utilizing the wind farms, but also more efficient our buildings are being built, as well as the LED lights.
Perfect, thank you for that.
Thank you. That's great to know. All right, so where are we? We have a first and second?
We have that, we just have to vote.
Okay, so, all right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. 7.3, authorization to purchase water utilities from Water District Number 1. Dr.
No
Bridges?
huge description here, just annual water utilities.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Borgman?
Thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry?
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 7.5, adoption of school term plan for the 22. Oh, did I miss one? Thank you. 7.4, thank you, Ms. Goodburn. Authorization, authorization to purchase fuel for student transportation from World Fuel, Ozark Mountain Energy, and Mauer Oil.
So again, this is just an annual update. I just do want to point out that we did increase the budget by approximately $350,000 due to the cost of gas and diesel.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Approval, Goodburn.
Thank you, Ms. Goodburn. Second?
Second, Owsley?
All right. All in favor say aye. Oh, wait, sorry. No, that's okay. I'm sorry. I'm moving right along. Any
I know,
discussion?
there's a lot here, but I do want to
No.
just see if we could pop out, because some of this is for sped expenses, and with the potential upcoming changes of the year with regards to potentially the open transit.
Open enrollment.
And I know we track this because we spend that money out of the sped dollars. Could we get a report, down the line so that we can have a baseline for what we're spending out of transportation, specifically on transportation for sped students, so that we can track it if for some reason it goes up, so that we have that baseline to compare it. I mean, we're already paying for it out of sped, so we've got the data somewhere. It would be nice to have that included as we track it moving forward. So that's all. Thank you.
Can I ask one clarifying question on this one
Absolutely.
too? And I know it's already in progress, so it's, I think, in part a reminder for all of us as we hear the $350,000 increase in student transportation costs, that we are looking into like electric bus programs and really keeping on our eye on like new federal programs that would help us transition away from fuel, expensive fuel.
Yes, we continue to have those conversations.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, good questions. All right. So I believe we have a first and second. Yes, okay. So all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. All right, now 7.5, adoption of school term plan for 22-23. Dr. Hubbard.
So annually, we choose whether to do a school plan of hours versus days. We choose hours. That's 1,116 hours. And the calendar that you previously have adopted that is posted that we're going to be operating on reflects this amount of hours.
Okay.
So moved, Borgman?
Thank you, Ms. Borgman. Second?
Second.
I think we have a
Hembry.
tie there.
Yeah, it's fine.
Ms. Owsley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Works.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. 7.6, approval to publish notice of budget and revenue neutral rate hearings. And I'm going to look back again to Dr. Hubbard. Any elaboration or?
Yes, Mr. Knapp, I think, would like to elaborate.
Just got a little PowerPoint. We'll take it.
With a PowerPoint.
Yes,
He'd like
please.
to elaborate with a PowerPoint.
Who doesn't love a budget PowerPoint? All right, so, yes, so action 7.06 is we're seeking board approval to do our budget hearing for the 22-23 budget, and also the revenue neutral at our tax rate that came into play last year. So on our budget timeline, we're now down to July 25th, which is tonight. The approval of the publication we'll put in the Kansas City Star and on our website at the end of this week. It goes for 10 days, and then we come back on August 22nd, and we'll have the two hearings, the revenue neutral hearing and then the budget hearing, and then we'll put an action item on there for approval of the resolution for the R&R, and then the actual budget itself. Next slide, Terry. Thank you. The assumptions that have changed or updated since when I presented to you at the May workshop. When the state sent out their budget documents, they actually increased the reimbursement rate by $1,340. That'll give us another $1.2 million, but just as a reminder, this is just an estimate. They don't set that number until next May with the actual reimbursement rate. So this is just what we build our budget on, and then it gets locked in 11 months later. Okay, the LOB base it's in the school finance formula that it is the higher of the actual base or the 3-year CPI average. So with the CPI index being extremely high right now, that average is at 4.5%. So that actually gives us a little more LOB authority of about $740,000. So that was good news that we found out when we got our budget documents. And obviously, since May, we have a tentative agreement with the Shawnee Mission NEA. It goes out for ratification here next week. Administrative classified raises have been approved, and we still have PAT and Sykes negotiating. But included in the budget is close to $4.5 million in that compensation package for all pay groups. We added the $300,000 for our fuel for our student transportation, and then property insurance always comes at that very end of the year. Whether we can pay it out of June or July. We're going to go ahead and try to pay that out of 22-23. We'll put that in the budget, and then we'll reevaluate it as we get closer to June and look at the timing of when the premiums go out to market and get brokered, and if we can get those in time to pay those, or we have to move those to July. So we'll make that decision more closer to June and see where we're at on the market. You've seen this slide many times, but part of your in the budget that is going to go out for publication. This is the summary of the operating funds. So we are going to deficit spend about $2.7 million, which will take our ending fund balances down to $20.3 million, leaving us right at 10% for DBB. We use that deficit spend to be able for the IBB negotiating team to come to that tentative agreement. So that's where we are on operating funds. This is just a slide to kind of break down the notice of hearing that will actually go in to the newspaper. So the important piece here is the total budget is $509.4 million. This sets our budget authority. We cannot go higher than this. We can go lower once it gets published in the newspaper. Some good news is our mill levy is actually going down 2.335 down to 49.332. So that's very good news for the Shawnee Mission community on the taxes. This next slide, thank you, Terry. This is the hearing for the revenue neutral rate. If one individual fund increases, you have to go through the revenue neutral tax rate. So capital outlay is increasing. So we will have that hearing on August 22nd as well. We submitted the R&R form to Johnson County on July 19th, and the county will be sending out the notices this year. They didn't have to send them out last year, but they'll be sending them out this year. Johnson County has to pay that mailing fee this year. Building needs assessment. Building administrators right now are finalizing their building needs assessment and answering those 3 questions about the state assessment review. They're due to the Board of Education. We're going to have those, they're due by the 29th to us, and then we're going to review them and get it to the board by August 8th for you to review each building's needs assessment, for you to give your feedback for each of those assessments. That information will be compiled into the budget as presented to you on August 22nd. That concludes my report. If you had any questions on the budget hearing.
I would just like to add on the building needs assessment, that's a process that we do all year long. I mean, we're just finalizing the formal document as a result of this spring legislative session for your review. But I just want to reiterate that that's something that the HR team starts, well, really, I'm going to take it this coming year, but, finalized state assessments we'll have in, I don't know, September, October. Buildings will start the process then. They'll be looking at data. We'll have map review that happens, with fall data, winter data, and then spring data even next year. So that's something that's a continual process, as well as HR will start really having conversations about staffing for the 23-4 school year. As early as November, we'll start looking at numbers. So I don't want people to think that a needs assessment is something we just check. The form, we have indeed done that because it's a new form and we just received it in June, but the process is something that has been ongoing. It's not something new that buildings are having to do.
Appreciate that distinction. Okay, so questions. So I'm going to seek a motion to approve in a second and then take some questions.
So move, Borgman.
Okay,
Second,
thank you.
Ousley.
Thank you. All right, Sarah, do you have any, you're next in line for questions. Ms. Borgman, do you have any?
Goodburn.
Goodburn. Oh my God. Sorry, Jamie.
No, I don't have any questions, but thank you for the presentation.
Okay, all right. Ms. Embry?
I just want to confirm, so there's no places, I'm looking at this slide 6, and apologies because there's just a lot of information here, and I know it's going out to all of our constituent taxpayers. There are no places here where we have made a decision to decrease mill levies ourselves to decrease revenue coming into the district, right?
That's correct. The mill levies will be presented to you August 22nd when you approve the budget. So the mill levies are in there. So that's actually your formal approval of the mill levies at that time.
And the far right-hand side where we have the estimated tax rate on slide 6?
Yes.
I understand where they're coming from for general and capital outlay, but where are they coming from for all other funds? That's more of an enigma to me.
Through the budget process that calculates the mill levies that we have to levy to generate the revenue to support those expenditures.
So they're based on the revenue we need is how we've kind of backed into those mill levies.
Well, yeah, it's a calculation that the state documents all do. All districts follow that in the state of Kansas.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
there's really not a lot of decisions happening here. A lot of it is required by the state, and we're doing some math ourselves.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's a good description. Ms. Boyd-Nerona.
I have no questions.
Okay. Ms. Borgman.
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Ousley.
I've got one. I noticed with our mill levy rate going down, and we had already had one of the lower ones in Johnson County, do we know where we sit now comparatively with the other folks yet? Do we know how we compare with everybody's new mill levy?
We would still be the lowest.
Can we, by how much?
We're probably, I'm going to go, maybe the next one up is 62.
So the next one up is 62 and we're at 49?
Well, that's 60, that's last year's data.
Okay,
so
right.
we were
I'm
at,
like, do we know what this upcoming
We
year
can
is?
probably
Not
do
yet.
it after people publish
Yeah.
and get that information to you.
yeah.
That would be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I had two quick questions about slide. We'll stay with slide 6 for a minute. So the county is responsible for sending out communication to property owners. Do we provide an explanation kind of in conjunction with that, like an email to homeowners or anything like that? Is that?
We have not typically done that, no.
No,
Okay.
this is the first year that they're noticing, and I think the requirements are just, you'll get a postcard in your mailbox saying, here's the revenue tax rate, and here's what Shawnee Mission is recommending.
Okay. All right. And then for slide 4, just I'm trying to remember and wrap my head around, we've been pretty good about not deficit spending in the last couple of years. Is that somewhat a function of the change in enrollment finally hitting us? That on slide 4, looking at kind of, the
Right.
deficit spending, is that really, because I don't anticipate us deficit needing, anyways.
We did. So, yeah, so the current year we lost $4 million. based on weighted FTE. And so next year, we're losing, what was it, 4 to 5 million based on head count enrollment. Because now our head
4.6 or
count,
something, yeah.
Okay.
our head count now is based on 21, 22 school year.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Was that one aye there? I can't tell if that was Ms. Goodburn. Are you still with us?
Oops, maybe I was on the.
Mute? Okay. All right. No, that's okay. All right. Okay, there we go. So any nays? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Knapp. All right, 7.7, approval to renew agency contract for supplemental operations staff.
So I just want to add, again, this is a renewal, and it's primarily for the use of second shift custodians at our middle school and high school. We currently have 67 openings on our second shift. Last year, I believe we had approximately 42, and we used this service at the high school. But because we are at 67, we are expanding to the middle school.
All right, do I have a motion?
So move Borgman.
Thank you, second?
Second, Hembry.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, questions?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Will this fill the gap then? I mean, is this getting our needs met?
It will get our needs met, yes.
Not, but ideally, we would love to have these positions.
Filled by our own people,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Would that be a significant cost savings, or what does that look like financially if we were able to fill it?
Well, we have those positions still budgeted. But if we don't fill them, you'll see similar to what you saw this year of the fallout, and we will save money there. But for what we're not spending in filling the positions, we're paying this contract.
Yeah.
So
Are we spending more with the contract than we would?
can any of you all help me with that?
Sorry, if
On
you can
any
get-
of these contracted, I would guess it's probably close to a push. Russ?
Yeah, so the reason we're using these contracts is because we have so many vacancies.
Right.
So many vacancies
Yep.
is generating so much savings. So it would be a push, or we might even be coming out ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, did anybody else have questions?
I was just going to confirm, I think a lot of these, because we have a number of these contracts here that are kind of additional staffing for vacancies or positions we can't fill. How many of them approximately are sort of new since pandemic and staffing shortages versus like customary staffing contracts?
So there's lots of people in the room, but I'm gonna take a guess on this one because most of us were not around prior to COVID, at least in the weeds in this particular area. But I think most of them are new since COVID, with the exception of potentially we have maybe historically used some contracted service for some special needs services and hard to fill positions, especially like OT, PT, school psychs potentially throughout the years when those much more harder to fill positions. But generally speaking, we likely did not use a contracted service for custodial or floating substitutes and that type of thing. And people are shaking their heads in agreement with me. And I would say that's not just Shawnee Mission. Unless you choose to contract your operations, most school districts would answer that question probably the same way.
I'm sorry, can I ask, if it's, again, we maybe something to talk about at a later date, but if we are saving money, and it's a significant amount of money, to do a contract service for something like the second shift, would it be something to consider just doing a contract service then versus having our own employees if we're?
I think we'll continue to look into that. It's a 12-month contract. Last year was the first year we had to experiment with it just with the high school, and then all of a sudden now we have to use it for the middle school. So I think we need to weigh the pros and cons of, one, how good are the buildings getting
Yeah.
cleaned, and secondly, what type of fiscal responsibility we have, whether we're actually gaining money or
Right.
losing money through it.
think
So
it's
we need to look, it's a little too early to make that
Sure.
estimate. Yeah,
Sounds like something to keep an eye on, though.
100%.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think Jessica makes a good point. We have a lot of these contracts, so that we're going to be talking about tonight. You're going to see multiple of them, and it's really the same conversation with all of them.
I think it's just interesting how many of them are kind of pandemic-related and also not payable with ESSER funds in many cases. So just a reminder to all of us that those ESSER funds are going to help with some things, but they're not going to help with everything forever.
And they're going to go away. I just need to
Yeah.
keep iterating. They're going to go away.
Right.
Now I have a question. Do we have any sort of projected analysis on what it would take, like extra pay-wise, to fill those positions? Like is there a pay point where people are then willing to work the second shift? Because it's my understanding that that is not the case, that some of our neighboring districts offered more, but the positions continue to go unfilled.
Yeah, Paris is a good example. Olathe, our neighbor, increased those pay rates, and to no avail. They still had those open positions, so that's something that we need to continue to look at. Dr. Gilhouse's comment, I think, is really good. We find ourselves in this pandemic, and everyone's having a hard time filling positions, so to make a decision about is contracted services the way to go, or is increasing pay the way to go, I don't know if right now is the exact time to do it. I think we need further analysis. But yeah, they're hard to fill positions right now.
Is the labor pool that much smaller?
Yeah, is this, are we hitting the Great Recession, that was going to hit us at some point?
I think the other piece of
Not
it,
recession, but Great Retirement.
yeah, the other
whatever.
piece of it is
Resignation.
flexibility more than pay. It's I want the flexibility to work when I want to work. And with the contracted service, I can get paid daily, and I can work 2 days a week this week and maybe 3 next week, and I can work when I want to work. And it's not just with these contracted services, but we're seeing that across the board with a lot of positions. It's less about the money and more about the flexibility. And we're not in a position to offer a lot of flexibility. I mean, our kids are going to show up every day, Monday through Friday from 8 to 4, and we have no control over that. And I think that is probably our biggest challenge with the labor pool, more so than money. And like HR, I would love for you to jump in and
100%, yeah. I mean, what we're seeing is people want that flexibility in their workspace. They want flexibility in their schedule. And as Dr. Hubbard said, we can't provide that. Our kids are showing up every single day. We have to have those services. Ideally, all of these people are our employees. But right now, with where we're at, we can't do without these contracted services.
Thank you.
Okay, great discussion. Okay, I've lost track of, we have a first and second again, correct? Okay, so, and we are on 7.7,
We need to approve it.
right? So this is what we're on, 7.7, we have a first and second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. All right, 7.8, approval of agreement with Tran Technologies, expensive repair HVAC for SMSD Aquatic Center. Dr. Hubbard.
Yeah, so this is approval for extensive repair of HVAC on the rooftop units, correct? Rooftop units at the Aquatic Center. And we're still looking into the warranty, as these units are about 3 years old now. But we're hopeful that the warranty will cover some of the parts, but it wasn't a situation where we could wait to see, because climate control and airflow in a facility like an aquatics center is extremely important just to protect the overall building. So we have proceeded to, in an emergency situation, to get moving on these parts, but we're still hopeful that some of the warranty will cover that, but we don't know that. So for now, we're asking for not to exceed for the entire budget amount, but we're hopeful not to spend that.
All right,
So moved, Ousley.
thank you. Second?
second, Hembry.
All right, any other questions?
What
Yeah,
happened?
The gift that keeps on giving.
So we have the air control quality is functioned by 2 main units that sit up on the roof of the aquatic center. Both of those are down. There are 3 compressors in each one of those units. So 2 of the 3 compressors in each unit have gone faulty. So we don't know whether it was the installation, malfunction of improper parts, but we are functioning on 33% capacity right now, which is why we have to move now to get the quality of that air control back up and running ASAP. So we're on borrowed time right now and trying to understand there's still people using that facility.
Wow. Okay.
Aye. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Borkman.
All right.
We
already
did
had a
that
first
part.
and second
We're
there?
just
Okay, yeah,
voting.
vote. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 7.9, approval of contract with Maxim Healthcare Services of Overland Park, and it's very similar to 7.10, the approval of healthcare staffing services of Omaha.
So 7.9 and 7.10, this used to be one company, and they have split into 2. You'll see it was, I know it's kind of too confusing, but if you look closely, you'll see one is of Overland Park and one is of Omaha. They're both $300,000, and so it's a maximum of $600,000. And these contracts are for healthcare services for special education and paid for with special education funds.
So let's take each one at a time. So 7.9, the approval of the contract with Overland Park. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Owsley.
Move approval, Goodburn.
Thank
Second,
you.
Owsley.
And Owsley and Goodburn. All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 7.10, this is the Maxim Healthcare Services of Omaha. First, motion?
Move approval, Hembry.
Second, Borkman.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And then this next, 7.11, the approval of contract, again with Maxim Healthcare Services of Omaha. This is for substitute float nurses.
So moved, Owsley.
Second, Borkman.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approval of contract with ProCare Therapy.
So move, Borkman.
Second, Owsley.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 7.3, approval of contract with Quantum Health Professionals. Approval?
Move approval, Hembry.
Thank you.
Second, Owsley.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And our last action items, 7.14, approval of contract with supplemental health care.
Move approval, Borkman.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Owsley.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. That brings us to board comments. Let's see, where are we? Ms. Embry, can we start with you?
I don't have any comments tonight.
Okay, all right. Ms. Boyd-Norona?
I have no further comment.
All right. Okay, Ms. Borgman?
Okay, welcome back, administrators. We are excited to have you. I had a young man who is going to be a senior at Shawnee Mission Northwest, who I didn't know, sacked my groceries, and he is very excited for school, and it just was refreshing to see how excited kids are, and we hope that this is a more normal year than we've had in the past several, and so thanks for all you do.
All right, great. Ms. Owsley?
I don't have any comments tonight.
All right. I had the opportunity to join both the Secretary's breakfast this morning, welcome back breakfast, and the administrative leadership retreat, and the energy in the room in all those events was stellar. It's exciting. It's inspiring, given the challenges that the Shawnee Mission staff continue to just embrace and move forward. And I'm looking back at you two for the motto was to do.
Handle hard.
Handle hard, that's right.
We
The
have to
wrong
learn.
word.
It's not
Handle
going to
hard
be
better.
easier, so we have to learn how to handle hard better.
All right. All right. Ms. Goodburn. Any
I
closing?
just look forward to seeing all your
on August 8th. I'll be back live in person on August 8th, I promise.
All right. So I believe that concludes our meeting, and we will reconvene again on August 8th for our next regularly scheduled board meeting. Thank you, everybody.